13 hours in a metal tube does strange things to a man's mind. But as the wheels of the plane touched down on the tarmac at DFW Airport in Dallas, the exhaustion that had settled deep in my bones for the last 3 years began to lift. I was finally home. My name is Nolan. I am 30 years old, and for the last 36 months I have been living in a tiny hyper-efficient apartment in Tokyo working as a financial engineer. It was a brutal contract, 16-hour days, endless spreadsheets, and a culture of politeness that sometimes felt like a straitjacket. But I did it for a reason. I did it to pay off every single cent of the mortgage on my sanctuary, my house. It wasn't just a building. It was a sprawling 4-bedroom suburban fortress in a quiet neighborhood valued at $750,000. I had bought it 5 years ago, putting down every dollar I had saved since college. It was the first thing in my life that was truly mine. Growing up, I didn't have things that were mine. I had things that were ours, which inevitably meant they belonged to my older brother, Wesley. But this house, this was my flag in the ground. I navigated through customs, the familiar draw of the Texas border agents sounding like music after years of Japanese. I grabbed my 2 suitcases heavy with gifts for my family. I had expensive skincare sets for my mother Sylvia, a set of premium golf clubs for my father, Harold, and even for Wesley. Despite our strained history, I had brought a limited edition watch. I wanted to believe that 3 years of distance had healed old wounds. I wanted to believe that coming home meant I could finally rest. I picked up my rental car, a generic white sedan that smelled like stale coffee, and hit the highway. The Texas heat was a physical weight, pressing against the glass, but I rolled the window down anyway, letting the humid air blast my face. I drove past the familiar strip malls, the giant gas stations, and the sprawling developments. My heart was actually racing. I pictured walking through my front door, the smell of the oak floors, the silence of the backyard. I had left a spare key with my parents. The agreement was simple. They would check on the place once a month, flush the toilets, run the taps, and make sure the pipes didn't freeze in the winter. In exchange, I paid for the landscaping service and the utilities remotely. I hadn't told them the exact day I was coming back. I wanted to surprise them. I wanted to invite everyone over for a barbecue on my patio in my house and show them that the little brother who was always too serious had made it. I pulled into my subdivision. The trees were taller than I remembered. The neighborhood looked good. I turned the final corner, my eyes scanning for number 4205. And then I slammed on the brakes. I sat there in the middle of the street, the rental car idling, staring at my driveway. There was a black SUV parked there. A massive shiny beast of a vehicle that I didn't recognize. It had a bumper sticker on the back that said, "Proud parent of an honor student." My first thought was rational. Or at least it tried to be. Maybe mom and dad are here checking on the place. I thought maybe they bought a new car, but that didn't make sense. My father, Harold, had driven the same beat-up truck for 20 years, claiming it had character. My mother drove a small sedan. This SUV was brand new. I parked the rental across the street and stepped out. The heat hit me again, but this time it felt suffocating. As I walked up the driveway, I noticed other things, wrong things. The rose bushes I had planted by the porch, the ones I had explicitly asked the landscapers to maintain, were gone. In their place were generic, low-maintenance shrubs. The mailbox was different. It used to be a standard black metal box. Now it was a brick pillar, but the thing that made my stomach drop was the front door. I reached into my pocket and squeezed the brass key I had carried with me every single day in Japan. It was my talisman. But as I looked at the door handle, I realized my key was useless. The standard deadbolt was gone. It had been replaced by a high-tech touchscreen electronic smart lock. The keypad was glowing a soft blue in the afternoon shade. Panic, cold and sharp, started to prick at the back of my neck. Did they rent it out? I wondered. Did they think that because I was gone for 3 years, they could make some extra cash by renting it out without telling me? I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the rising anger. If they had rented it out, I was going to be furious, but it was fixable. I would just have to kick the tenants out. I stepped onto the porch and rang the doorbell. I could hear a chime inside, a different melody than the one I had installed. A few moments later, the door swung open. Standing there was a man I had never seen in my life. He looked to be in his mid-50s, wearing a polo shirt tucked into khaki shorts. He held a half-eaten sandwich in one hand and looked at me with mild annoyance. "Can I help you?" he asked. I stared at him. I looked past him into the hallway. My hallway. The painting I had hung on the left wall was gone. The walls were painted a different color, a beige that I hated. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice coming out rougher than I intended. The man frowned, taking a bite of his sandwich. "Excuse me. You rang my doorbell, son. I think the question is, who are you?" "I'm Nolan," I said, stepping closer. "And this is my house. What are you doing inside?" The man stopped chewing. His eyes narrowed. He swallowed slowly, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "Your house, buddy. I don't know what you're selling or if you're confused, but I suggest you step off my porch." "I'm not selling anything," I snapped, the jet lag mixing with adrenaline. "I own this property. I've been overseas for work. Just got back. Now I'm going to ask you one more time. Who are you and why are you in my house?" The man let out a short, incredulous laugh. "My name is Mr. Fletcher. And I bought this house 2 weeks ago. Paid cash. So, unless you're the ghost of Christmas past, you need to get the hell off my property before I call the cops." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "Bought it." The words echoed in my head, bouncing around like a rubber ball in an empty room. "That's impossible," I stammered, my confidence wavering for the first time. "I didn't sell it. I'm the owner. My name is on the deed." "Nolan. Look it up." Mr. Fletcher's face hardened. He was done being polite. "I don't need to look up anything. I sat at a closing table. I signed the papers. I have the title insurance. Now get lost." He tried to close the door, but I instinctively put my hand out to stop it. "It was a mistake. Don't you touch my door," Fletcher roared. He dropped his sandwich on the porch and pulled a cell phone from his pocket. "I'm calling the police. You're trespassing. Call them." I yelled back, my hands shaking. "Call them. Have my ID. Have my rights." 10 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up to the curb, lights flashing silently. Neighbors were starting to come out of their houses. People I vaguely recognized, staring at me like I was a criminal. A police officer, a young guy with a stern face, walked up the driveway. "Okay, settle down," the officer said, his hand resting near his belt. "What's the problem here?" "This lunatic is trying to break into my house," Fletcher spat, pointing a finger at my chest. "Claims he owns it." "I do own it," I pleaded, pulling out my passport and my Texas driver's license. "Officer, look, my name is Nolan. This has been my address for 5 years. I've been in Japan on contract. I just got back from the airport. My luggage is in that car." The officer took my ID and looked at it, then looked at Fletcher. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" "Damn right I do," Fletcher said. He disappeared inside and came back a moment later with a thick folder. He pulled out a crisp blue-bound document. "Deed of sale. Closing date 10 days ago. Recorded with the county." The officer took the papers. He scanned them, then walked back to his cruiser to run a check on the onboard computer. I stood there on the porch sweating in the afternoon sun, feeling like I was in a nightmare. When the officer came back, his expression was pitying. That was worse than anger. Pity meant I had already lost. Sir, the officer said to me, according to the county records, this property was legally transferred to a Mr. Robert Fletcher on the 4th of this month. The previous owner is listed as you, but the sale is completed. But I didn't sign anything. Shouted. I was in Tokyo. That's a civil matter, sir. The officer said firmly. Right now, legally, this house belongs to Mr. Fletcher. You are trespassing. I need you to get in your vehicle and leave, or I will have to place you under arrest. I looked at Fletcher. He was smirking now, arms crossed. The victor of a battle I didn't even know I was fighting. I looked at the house, my sanctuary. This is a mistake, I whispered. Go, the officer commanded, pointing to my rental car. I walked back down the driveway, my legs feeling like lead. I got into the hot rental car, the smell of stale coffee making me nauseous. I reversed out, watching Mr. Fletcher pick up his sandwich and slam the door. My door shut. I drove 3 blocks away and pulled into the parking lot of a rundown motel. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely unlock my phone. I dialed my brother Wesley. He answered on the 3rd ring. Yellow. He sounded cheerful. I could hear the clinking of silverware in the background. He was eating. Wesley, I said, my voice trembling with a rage I had never felt before. I'm at the house, or I was at the house. There was a silence on the other end. A long heavy pause. Then the sound of chewing stopped. You're back? Wesley asked. His voice wasn't shocked. It was flat. We didn't think you were coming back for another month. The house, Wesley, I said, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. There is a stranger living in my house. He says he bought it. Police say he owns it. What the hell is going on? Wesley sighed, a sound of irritation, as if I were interrupting something important. Look, Nolan, don't freak out. I handled it. Handled it. He screamed. You sold my house. I cashed out, Wesley said, his tone chillingly casual. The market was at a peak. It was a smart play. I got a cash offer. Closed in 2 weeks. You should be thanking me. I saved you the realtor fees. You stole my house. Choked out. How? How did you even sign for it? Mom and Dad said it was okay. Wesley deflected. Put Mom on, he said to someone in the room with him. A moment later, my mother's voice came on the line. Sylvia, the woman who had birthed me. Nolan, she said, her voice sharp. Why are you yelling at your brother? He's trying to have dinner. He sold my house, Mom. He yelled. He sold my $750,000 house. That was everything I had. Oh, stop being so dramatic. Sylvia snapped. It was a family asset. You know how we operate. Sure. Your brother was in a tight spot. He needed capital for a business venture. Huge opportunity. You're single. You have that fancy job in Japan making all that money. You don't need a big house like that. You can just buy another one. The entitlement in her voice hit me like a physical blow. Family asset. Paid for it. Me. Every dime. And who raised you? She countered instantly. Who fed you? Who put clothes on your back? Now that you're successful, you think you're better than us. You think you can just hoard wealth while your brother struggles. We did what we had to do. Don't make a big deal out of this, Nolan. Or family. I'm going to the police, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. You wouldn't dare, Sylvia hissed. You sent the police after your own brother, and you are dead to us. Do you hear me? The line went dead. I sat in the silence of the car. The scream that built up in my chest was primal. I let it out. A raw, guttural sound that tore at my throat, pounding my fists against the dashboard until the plastic cracked. They hadn't just taken my house. They had taken my trust, my safety, and my love, and cashed it out like a poker chip. I checked into the motel. The room smelled of mildew and cheap lemon cleaner. I threw my suitcases on the bed. The suitcases filled with gifts for the people who had just robbed me blind. That night, I stared at the water-stained ceiling, unable to close my eyes. Every time I drifted off, I saw Mr. Fletcher smirk or heard my mother's voice telling me I was selfish. Lying there in the dark, the memories came flooding back, forming a pattern I had been too blind to see. The family dynamic hadn't started with the house. Had always been this way. I remember being 10 years old. I had saved my allowance for 6 months to buy a Game Boy. 2 weeks after I bought it, it disappeared. I found it in Wesley's room. Screen cracked. My father, Harold, had just shrugged. He didn't mean to break it, Nolan. He just wanted to play. You should have shared it with him. When you hide things, it makes people curious. I was the selfish one for having something. Wesley was the victim because he wanted it. I remembered when I was 16, working summer jobs to buy my first car, a beat-up Honda. Wesley, who was 20 at the time and had lost his license due to a DUI, took my keys while I was asleep. He totaled the car, wrapping it around a telephone pole. My mother, Sylvia, came to the hospital where Wesley was being treated for a broken arm. She looked at me standing there in shock and said, "Why did you leave your keys out? You know he's going through a hard time. This is your fault." My fault. Always my fault. I had spent my entire adult life trying to prove I was good enough, trying to buy their approval with success. Became an engineer. I sent them money. I bought the big house so we could have Christmas dinners there. I went to Japan to earn even more, thinking if I just get rich enough, they'll finally respect me. But they didn't see me as a person. They saw me as a resource. I was a reservoir and Wesley was the drain. And my parents were the plumbers, ensuring the flow only went one way. By the time the sun began to bleed through the thin curtains of the motel room, my sadness had hardened into something else. It was cold. It was heavy. It was resolve. I sat up and splashed cold water on my face. I looked at myself in the cracked mirror. The tired man from the airport was gone. In his place was someone who had nothing left to lose. Family asset, I whispered to the reflection. Picked up my phone. I wasn't going to scream anymore. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to treat this exactly like what it was. This wasn't a family dispute. This was a financial crime. And I was a financial engineer. I knew how to follow the numbers. I knew where they would be. Every Sunday morning for the last 20 years, my parents and Wesley went to the Golden Skillet, a diner on the edge of town. They liked the all-you-can-eat pancakes. I pulled into the parking lot at 9 o'clock in the morning. Sure enough, there was my dad's truck, and right next to it, the shiny new black SUV that had been parked in my driveway the day before. I walked in. The bell on the door jingled. The smell of bacon and coffee hit me. I scanned the booths. There they were. Harold, Sylvia, Wesley, and his wife, Bianca. They were laughing. Bianca was showing off something on her wrist, a gold bracelet that caught the light. Wesley was digging into a stack of waffles. I walked right up to the table. I didn't say hello. I just stood there, casting a shadow over their meal. Wesley looked up, syrup on his chin. His eyes widened slightly, but he didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. "Jesus, Nolan, you look like hell. Sit down. Get some coffee. Where is the money?" I asked. My voice was low, devoid of emotion. Harold cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable. "Now, son, let's not make a scene. People are eating." "I don't care. I said you sold my house. $750,000. Where is it?" Bianca let out a scoff. She dabbed her mouth with a napkin. She was 32 with sharp features and eyes that always seemed to be calculating the price of everything in the room. "It's been invested. Nolan Wesley has a brilliant plan. Crypto holdings and a logistics startup. We're going to triple the money in 6 months. You'll get your share back with interest. Honestly, you should be thanking him for managing your assets while you were abandoning us in Japan. Managing my assets, I repeated. He forged my signature. Wesley rolled his eyes. He reached into a leather bag next to him and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He slid it across the sticky table. I didn't forge anything, Wesley said smoothly. You signed this before you left. Remember power of attorney giving me full rights to handle your real estate portfolio. Picked up the paper. It was a general power of attorney. Gave Wesley full control. At the bottom was a signature. It looked terrifyingly like mine. The loops of the N, the sharp cross of the T. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed I signed it. Look at the date, Bianca said smugly. October 27th, 3 years ago, notarized and everything. Pulled out my phone. I'm taking a picture of this. Go ahead, Wesley said, taking a bite of waffle. It's a legal document. You can't touch us, Nolan. We did everything by the book. I snapped a high-resolution photo of the document, focusing on the signature, the notary stamp, and the date. You really think you can beat me with a fake piece of paper? Yes. It's not fake, Sylvia chimed in, glaring at me. Stop attacking your brother. He's the only one who stayed here to take care of us while you were off eating sushi and forgetting where you came from. I looked at them one last time. The 4 of them, united in their delusion. They truly believed they were entitled to my life. Enjoy the waffles, I said. It's the last meal I'm ever paying for. I turned and walked out, leaving them to their victory breakfast. They thought the piece of paper was their shield. They didn't know it was the nail in their coffin. The next stop was the office of Marcus Pierce. He was a real estate litigation attorney I had found online. 5 stars, reviews that described him as a shark and a pit bull. That was exactly what I needed. His office was downtown, all glass and steel. Pierce was a man in his 50s, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He listened to my story without interrupting. His face unreadable. It's a mess, Pierce said finally, leaning back in his chair. If that power of attorney holds up, you have an uphill battle. Proving a signature is forged is difficult. Experts cancel each other out. Becomes a he said, she said. It's not a he said, she said, I said. I pulled out my phone and showed him the photo of the document. Look at the date. October 27th, 3 years ago. Pierce said. So I reached into my bag and pulled out my passport. It was worn, filled with stamps. I flipped to the back pages. I flew to Tokyo on October 26th, I said, placing the passport on his mahogany desk. It's a 13-hour flight plus the time difference. I landed in Narita on October 27th. Pierce leaned forward. He put on a pair of reading glasses and looked closely at the passport. There was in red ink. Immigration Inspector, Narita Airport, October 27th. I was physically in Japan when this document was supposedly signed and notarized in Texas. I said, unless I learned how to teleport, that document is a fraud. A slow smile spread across Pierce's face. It was a predatory smile. That changes everything, Pierce said softly. This isn't just a civil dispute anymore. This is undeniable proof of felony forgery. And if they use the mail or internet to facilitate this, it's wire fraud. Can we get the house back? Yes. We can do more than that, Pierce said, picking up his phone. We can freeze them out. If that document is void, the sale is void. The deed transfer is invalid. But first we need to stop the money from disappearing. I'm going to file for an emergency injunction. We'll freeze every account associated with your brother and his wife. He looked at me. Are you ready for this? Once I file this, there is no going back. This is the nuclear option. I thought about the Game Boy. Thought about the car. I thought about the family asset. Push the button, I said. Before I left Pierce's office, I asked one last question. My personal belongings. The house was furnished. My degree, my clothes, my photos. Where are they? Pierce made a call to the title company that handled the sale. A few minutes later, he handed me a slip of paper with an address. They rented a storage unit, apparently part of the cleaning out process. I drove to the address. It wasn't a climate-controlled facility. It was a row of rusted metal shacks on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where things go to rot. I cut the padlock with a pair of bolt cutters I bought at a hardware store. I didn't have the key and I didn't care. I rolled up the metal door. The heat inside was stifling. And the smell of damp cardboard and mildew hit me instantly. My leather sofa was there, slashed down the side as if it had been dragged carelessly. My expensive electronics, the TV, the sound system were gone, obviously sold. But it was the boxes in the corner that broke me. I opened one. Contained my books. They were warped from the humidity. Pages stuck together. I opened another. It was my framed diploma from the university. The glass was shattered. The frame broken in half. And then the bottom box. It was just thrown in unsealed. Inside were photo albums. Pictures of me as a kid, pictures of friends, memories of the last 10 years. They were covered in a layer of dust and grime. Some had spilled out onto the dirty concrete floor. Wesley hadn't just sold my house. He had treated my entire existence like garbage. He didn't care about my memories. To him, I was just an obstacle to the money. I picked up a photo of me and my grandfather, the only person in the family who had ever truly encouraged me. The photo was bent, the corner torn. I held it to my chest and sat on the dirty concrete floor of that storage unit. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt a cold, hard knot tighten in my chest. They wanted a war. They wanted to talk about family. Fine. I was going to show them exactly what happens when you cross the only person in the family who actually knows how to work. If you are enjoying the story so far and want to see justice served, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment with the name of the city you are watching from. Every comment helps this video reach more people. Thank you so much. The next 48 hours moved at a blistering pace. Lawyer Pierce was as good as his reputation. He filed an emergency export motion with the court presenting the passport stamp as prima facie evidence of fraud. The judge granted a temporary restraining order and an immediate asset freeze on Wesley and Bianca. I was sitting in Pierce's office when the financial forensics came back. I had asked my friend Kira, a cybersecurity expert I knew from my tech circles, to help Pierce trace the funds. Since the sale happened 2 weeks ago, we needed to know where the $750,000 went. Kira dialed in on the speakerphone. "Hey Nolan, are you sitting down? Just tell me," I said. "How much is left?" "Well," Kira said, her voice sounding tiny through the speaker. "The good news is we froze about $300,000. The bad news is the rest is gone." "Gone where?" Pierce asked, pen poised over his notepad. "They didn't invest in a business," Kira explained. "Unless the business is BetMGM and offshore poker. I'm seeing massive wire transfers to 3 different online gambling sites within 48 hours of the closing. Roughly $400,000. Closed my eyes. $400,000. My blood, sweat, and tears gambled away in a week. "What about the rest?" Yes. $70,000 for a new Ford F-150 Raptor. Kira listed. $50,000 for a down payment on a boat, a Mastercraft. And about $30,000 in credit card payoffs for looks like designer handbags and jewelry. I looked at Pierce. My brother is a gambling addict. I knew he liked poker, but I didn't know it was this bad. "He was chasing losses," Pierce said, shaking his head. "He thought he could take your money, Double it on a sure thing, pay you back your share and keep the profit. When he lost the first 100 grand, he panicked and bet bigger. And the truck, the boat, trophies, P.S. said to show the world he was a success. Standard narcissist behavior. We had the smoking gun. We had the money trail. We had the passport. Legally we were invincible. But I had forgotten that my family didn't fight with logic. They fought with mud. That evening my phone started buzzing. Not calls, notifications. Open Facebook. I hadn't used it in years, but my account was still active. I had 50 new tags. Clicked on one. It led to a post by Bianca. It was a video of her sitting in her kitchen, which I now realized was renovated with my money. She was crying. No, she was sobbing theatrically. Friends, family, she wailed in the video. I don't normally do this, but we are being attacked. My husband's brother, Nolan, has come back from Japan. A changed man, a cruel man. He gave us permission to sell his old house to help us start a business. And now that he sees how successful we're becoming, he's jealous. He's suing us. He froze our bank accounts. We can't buy groceries. We can't pay our bills. He's trying to put his own brother on the street just out of spite. Please pray for us. The caption read, "When family chooses money over blood." Heartbroken. The comments were a cesspool. Wow, what a scumbag brother. Money changes people. Stay strong, Bianca. Nolan Riley. I remember him. Always thought he was stuck up. Then the texts started coming from aunts I hadn't seen in a decade, from cousins. How could you do this to your parents? You have so much. Why can't you share? Bianca says she's pregnant. She wasn't. And the stress is hurting the baby. You're a monster. I felt a wave of nausea. They were rewriting reality. In their version, I was the villain. They were using the community, the church group, the extended family, weaponizing my own privacy against me. Because I never posted about my life, they filled the void with their lies. I wanted to reply. I wanted to post the passport photo, the gambling records. I typed out a furious status update. Then I deleted it. No, I thought, do not engage. That's what they want. They want a drama. They want a screaming match. Put the phone down. I wasn't going to fight them on Facebook. I was going to fight them in a court of law where likes didn't matter and perjury was a felony. The next morning, there was a pounding on my motel door. I looked through the peephole. It was Harold and Sylvia, my parents. I opened the door, leaving the safety chain on. What do you want? Let us in, Nolan, my father said. He looked older, tired. We need to talk now. I ended the chain and let them in. The room was small, and their presence made it feel claustrophobic. Sylvia sat on the edge of the bed, clutching her purse. Harold stood by the window. You have to stop this, Harold said, his voice shaking. The bank called. Everything is frozen. Wesley can't access his funds. They came and towed the new truck this morning. Do you know how humiliating that is for him? In front of the neighbors. He stole my house. Dad, I said calmly. The truck was bought with stolen money. It was a misunderstanding. Sylvia cried out. He was going to pay you back. Why do you have to be so cruel? You're ruining his life over money. He committed a felony. I said forgery, fraud. He's your brother. Harold shouted. You don't put family in jail. You drop this lawsuit right now. You unfreeze the money. We will work out a payment plan. He can pay you $500 a month. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. $500 a month. It would take him 125 years to pay me back without interest. Well, if you go through with this, Sylvia stood up, her face red with rage. If you make your brother a criminal, we will never forgive you. You will have no parents. I think I made peace with that a long time ago, I said. Then I decided to lay the trap. Did you know? I asked quietly. Did you know the signature was fake? Harold sighed, rubbing his temples. We knew he was practicing your signature, Nolan. We saw him doing it at the kitchen table. But we thought it was just to speed things up. We thought you would have signed it anyway if you were here. It was a formality. Gotcha. My phone was in my shirt pocket, the voice memo app running since the moment they knocked. So, you watched him forge it and you did nothing. Asked just to be sure. We were helping the family. Sylvia screamed. Get out, I said. Nolan, get out. I pushed the door open. They stared at me with pure hatred, then walked out. As the door clicked shut, I stopped the recording. I had the confession. They were accomplices. The final piece of the puzzle was Mr. Fletcher. He had filed a countersuit against me for harassment and slander of title. He was furious. He thought I was a scam artist trying to steal the house back after selling it. I asked Pies to set up a meeting with Fletcher and his lawyer. We met in a conference room. Fletcher looked ready to punch me. This is a waste of time. Fletcher growled. I bought the house. Have the keys. Mr. Fletcher, Pies said calmly. Please look at this. He slid the file across the table. It contained the passport evidence and the bank record showing the gambling losses. Your money, Pies said, the $750,000 you paid. It wasn't given to Nolan. It was stolen by his brother Wesley. And $400,000 of it is already gone to offshore casinos. Fletcher's face went pale. He looked at the bank records, and here Pies continued is the proof that the power of attorney was forged. Legally the sale is boyo. That means it never happened. You don't own the house. But neither does Nolan technically until a judge rules. You are a victim here just like Nolan. Fletcher looked up at me. The anger drained out of him, replaced by horror. My money is gone. We froze about $300,000, I said. But the rest Wesley spend it. If you fight me, you're fighting the wrong person. If you help me, we can get a judgment against Wesley. You can get your money back from the frozen assets and garnish his future wages. But if you side with him, you lose everything. Fletcher slammed his fist on the table. That son of a he told me he was selling it for you because you were sick in Japan. He lied, I said. And the notary, the one who stamped the papers. Fletcher's eyes narrowed. Weird little woman. She was shaking the whole time. Rushed me through the signing. Didn't even ask for my ID until the end. Testify to that, Pies said. Help us nail the notary and we strengthen the case to get your money back. Fletcher extended his hand. I want that lying thief in handcuffs. I shook his hand. The enemy of my enemy was my friend. The dominoes began to fall. With Fletcher on our side, Pierce subpoenaed the notary public. Her name was Sarah. She was 24 years old, working out of a strip mall shipping center. When Pierce brought her in for a deposition, she tried to act tough. But Pierce was relentless. He showed her the passport evidence. He reminded her that notary fraud is a felony that carries prison time. He reminded her that she would lose her commission and her job forever. We know you didn't see Nolan sign that document, Pierce said, leaning across the table. We know he was in Tokyo. So you have two choices. You can go to jail for Wesley Riley or you can tell us the truth and maybe cut a deal. She broke in under 10 minutes. Crying, she admitted it. His wife Bianca, she came in. She gave me $5,000 cash in an envelope. She said her brother-in-law was out of the country and needed this done urgently to save his business. She said it was a victimless crime. She begged me. And the signature? Pierce asked. The brother Wesley. He signed it right there in front of me. I backdated the stamp to the date they told me to. It was over. We had the passport. We had the gambling records. We had the parents' confession. We had the notary. The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. Because of the overwhelming evidence and the criminal nature of the fraud, The judge agreed to an expedited summary judgment hearing on the title of the house. I walked into the courtroom wearing my best suit. Felt calm, cold but calm. On the other side of the aisle sat Wesley and Bianca. They looked terrible. Wesley had lost weight. His arrogance was replaced by a twitchy nervousness. Bianca looked like she had aged 10 years. My parents, Harold and Sylvia, sat in the gallery behind them, refusing to look at me. The hearing was brutal. Pierce didn't waste time with theatrics. He laid out the timeline like a math equation. "Your Honor," Pierce said. "Exhibit A, the passport." He projected the image of the entry stamp on the screen. The plaintiff was 7,000 miles away on the date of the alleged signing. The judge, a stern woman with glasses, nodded slowly. She looked at Wesley. "Exhibit B," Pierce continued. "The affidavit of the notary public admitting to bribery and fraud." Bianca let out a sob. The judge banged her gavel. "Silence." "Exhibit C," Pierce said, the bank records showing that the proceeds of the sale were not used for the plaintiff's benefit, but were wired to PokerStars and BetMGM by the defendant. And finally, Pierce played the audio recording. My father's voice echoed in the silent courtroom. "We knew he was practicing your signature, but we thought it was just to speed things up." The silence that followed was heavy. The judge slowly took off her glasses and looked at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Riley," the judge said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Your admission of prior knowledge makes you morally, if not legally, complicit in the defrauding of your own son. It is shameful." My mother put her face in her hands. My father stared at the floor. The judge didn't need to deliver it. "The court finds the power of attorney to be a forgery," she ruled. "The transfer of the property is voidio. Title is immediately restored to the plaintiff, Nolan Riley." She turned to Mr. Fletcher. "The frozen funds totaling $312,000 are to be released to the buyer, Mr. Fletcher, immediately." Then she looked at Wesley. "Mr. Riley, based on the evidence presented, forgery, wire fraud, and grand larceny, I am referring this matter immediately to the district attorney. Baifs, take Mr. Riley into custody." 2 officers moved in. Wesley stood up, panicked. "Wait, it was a mistake. Can pay it back. Mom, Dad, do something." The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the room. "And you," the judge pointed at Bianca. "You are to be detained for questioning regarding the bribery of a public official." "Whoa." Bianca screamed as they grabbed her. "Have anxiety. You can't touch me." As they dragged Wesley out, he looked back at me. His eyes were wide with terror. "Nolan, help me. I'm your brother. I just watched him." I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just watched. My mother, Sylvia, rushed to the railing, screaming at me. "You monster. You did this. You destroyed this family. I hope you rot in that big house all alone." I turned to Pierce. "Are we done?" "We're done," Pierce said, closing his briefcase. "Well, file civil suits against your parents for the remainder of Fletcher's restitution. They'll likely lose their house to pay him back." "Good," I said. The fallout was swift in total. 6 months later, the dust had settled. Wesley took a plea deal to avoid a 10-year sentence. He got 3 years in state prison followed by 5 years of probation. He will have a felony record for the rest of his life. He will never work in finance, never get a loan, never be trusted again. Bianca turned on him instantly. She filed for divorce while he was awaiting sentencing, claiming he coerced her. The court didn't buy it completely. She got probation and a massive fine, but she avoided prison. She took the car which was leased and left town. My parents suffered the most fitting fate. Because they had enabled the fraud, and because the frozen money wasn't enough to pay back Mr. Fletcher fully, they were sued. To settle the debt and avoid bankruptcy, they had to sell their own home, the house I grew up in. They moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment in a bad part of town. Their retirement savings were decimated by legal fees. Their friends, once they learned the truth about the forgery and the gambling, stopped calling. They were left alone with their bitterness. As for me, I got my house back. I walked in the day after the verdict. The electronic lock was gone, replaced by a standard deadbolt. I walked through the empty rooms. The beige paint was still there. The weird smell of Mr. Fletcher's sandwich seemed to linger. I stood in the living room looking out at the backyard where my rose bushes used to be. I waited to feel triumphant. I waited to feel happy. But I felt nothing. The house wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a crime scene. It was a monument to the betrayal. I realized I couldn't live there. Every shadow looked like Wesley. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like my mother's voice. I called a realtor the next day. I sold it as is. The market had gone up even more, so I made a tidy profit. I took the money, almost $1 million after the sale of the house and my savings, and I moved far away. I bought a plot of land in the Pacific Northwest near a quiet lake surrounded by pine trees. I built a small cabin. Just enough for me, no guest rooms, no space for family gatherings. Yesterday I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was from my mother. I stood on my porch looking at the lake, holding the envelope. I knew what was inside. Guilt trips, Bible verses. Pleas for money because their rent was late. Accusations that I had abandoned them. I didn't open it. I walked over to the fire pit where I was burning some brush. I held the envelope over the flames. I watched the paper curl, turn brown, and then burst into orange fire. I watched it turn to ash and float up into the clean, cold air. I realized then that I hadn't lost a family. You can't lose something you never really had. I had escaped a cult. I had escaped a system designed to drain me dry. I sat down in my chair and took a sip of coffee. The silence of the forest was heavy, but it wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. For the first time in 30 years, I didn't owe anyone anything. I wasn't a brother. I wasn't a son. I was just Nolan. And that was enough. So, am I for letting my parents lose their home and sending my brother to prison? Or was I just saving myself? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of justice, please hit the like button and subscribe for more.